Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs.
Welcome back to Your Family Dog Podcast. I'm Tina Spring. I'm joined today, as always, with the smart and pretty Julie Fudge Smith. And I am so excited for the guest we have today. It is Justine Schuurmans with the Family Dog. Yes, that's the name of the website.
Correct. It's very confusing.
I'm tripping
Your
over it
family
because it's
dog,
close.
the family dog.
And she has a whole new program out that I'm stoked about, right? She's singing the song of my people. So it's called the Dial Method. And this, I'm just stoked. I'm really excited about this programming. So we thought we would invite her on and let her kind of let you all in on this fantastic program she's created. So as is typical, I did the introduction and Julie gets to ask the first question. And welcome to the show, Justine.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's going to be confusing. Your family dog, the family dog. There's a lot of families and a lot of dogs going on.
Yes.
A family dog, some family dog,
all the families of the dogs.
That's right.
Perfect.
All right. Well, Justin, I'm so glad Justine, you could join us today. I guess the first couple of questions are pretty simple and we can combine them together. And one is, what is the Dial Method? How did you develop it? And what makes it different, better, or more effective than other methods?
Okay. So, what is the Dial Method?
I'll just ease you into that.
That was a softball to get started.
I was like, what?
First of all, I've got to remember the questions.
How do you plan on solving world hunger?
Well, peace. Yes. And
there you go.
No problem. I got a plan for that tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. What is the method? How did you develop it? And what makes it different?
Okay. So probably the quickest way to describe it is that I've been working with families, specifically with young children, for a very long time now, since 2009. I could see there was a massive demand for parents with younger kids trying to raise a dog and their children together and struggling, didn't know what to do. And regular obedience stuff was good, but it wasn't really cutting it. I just kind of keep thinking about how much of life happens outside of sit and stay. And so I created some programs for families to try to make their life a little bit easier. Professionals started looking at those programs, and then I realized, oh, wow, I have two audiences here. I've got the public and I've got pros who want to work with families with children and want to get a head start in doing that. And so I was kind of coasting along for a little while with the content that I'd created. And then it got to the beginning of last year and I felt like I'd gone through this huge metamorphosis, not only in how I work with dogs and live with dogs, but in my own personal life as well. And it was time for a revamp. And to be honest, I didn't really want to do it. It felt like too much work. I had a lot of content and I was like, ugh. It's like going up into the messy attic, when you've just got to clean everything out, and I wasn't digging it. Anyway, so I had set aside a few months in my calendar to knuckle down and actually get on with it. And I used to work in television and I love graphic design. And when I get stuck, I often will start with art. And so I just started creating this shape. I wanted to have 4 things to teach families because I thought everything else was just too complicated. They won't be able to remember more than 4 things. I can barely remember 2 things. So 4 I thought was maxing it. So I started making this circle and dividing it into 4. And it kind of took shape from there. And as it started taking shape, all the essential things that I just thought that parents absolutely needed to know and I couldn't leave out, they were nothing to do with training dogs. They were actually to do with them, how they were living with their dogs, helping them understand dogs, helping them understand their own unique dog, helping them understand what to teach their children, helping them understand how to plan for their life so that it's not just a free for all. And so, yeah, it started, it sounds so hokey, but it started making itself. And there was the dog training piece of it, the dog skills. If you see the Dial Method, the actual graphic, it's the little kind of core at the center of it. Because when you learn all of the outside pieces that you're supposed to do as the human being or as the parent, I kept thinking about my children and how I've raised my children. I didn't buy baby training books. I read parenting books because the responsibility isn't on a baby to get it right. The responsibility is on us to set up the environment for the baby to get it right.
Hold up,
Okay.
woman. I want you to say that again beautifully, like you just did.
Okay. The responsibility is on us to get it right, not on the baby to get it right. And if you bring a puppy into your house, they don't speak English, they don't understand the culture, they don't understand the rules. It is not their responsibility to get it right. It's really on us to create the environment and teach them the skills to be successful in our world.
And to be fair to Justine and to probably any of the trainers listening to this podcast, right? Because we espouse these same things. Like, it's not just on the dog. Like, this is about a family system. There was a time that it may not have passed yet where someone saying that out loud around other dog trainers, they would become apoplectic, right? I often say to people, you're trying to solve a behavior problem, because I do a lot of behavior services, with obedience, which is like trying to teach your child how to algebra their way out of a bully in the lunch line stealing their lunch money.
That's exactly right.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It can help.
Frustrates.
I don't think that dogs should be just the same way that we hold kids accountable. We can hold dogs accountable for things that we successfully teach them. So we have to be good teachers, and they have to understand the assignment. And when they understand the assignment, then we have to broaden the environments where we ask them to then complete the assignment. But we have to be mindful, as you said, you can't algebra your way out of an anxiety or a bullying situation. You need a whole different skill set. You need a parent. You need a parent.
Right. What I would also say too is that I'm not going to throw obedience completely under the bus, because that I have found when I'm working with, especially with shy or fearful dogs, is not only am I doing behavior modification, I look at husbandry issues, but I also want to build the dog's confidence. So that's where obedience comes in. When the dogs begin to learn skills and says, oh, I know what to do when a person comes in the house. I sit and things are really good. So I want to give the dog skills that it can use and it's comfortable with in order to build the confidence in the dog. So I don't want people to think that we're throwing obedience out the window, because I think that obedience can be very effective as part of the overall program for a dog.
Yes, but I think you're always starting with, how does the dog feel?
Oh, yeah.
You can't obedience a feeling.
No, right? You can't.
Am I right, Justine? Like, is that your experience too? The same way that if a child is super upset about something, her best friend on the school bus said something mean to her. Well, we could sit and try to give her, like, well, here's logic things and, all that stuff. But until the child is feeling better, having told the story or whatever, and we go, well, could this also be true? And what about this? And you see them soften. And now we get to a place where that teaching that's more that's more like, here are some things, these are some ways we could handle that, come in. And
sometimes the dog's not even in a place to learn something. Right. Like, I love Suzanne Clothier always calls it the think and learn zone. If you've got a dog that's up here, way up here, stressed out, anxious, fearful, whatever, trying to teach them a new behavior is really futile, isn't it? We know that. So we have to pick our moment. The same thing with kids. It's like, if they're having a meltdown, it's very hard to teach them something new. In the program, like you, Julie, I don't think throwing obedience or skills or whatever out the window is the right call. I definitely don't think that. But I tend to think about teaching our dogs skills really as communication, like you would do with a child or with a partner. You say, I'm going to ask this of you in this situation now, and I'd really like you to, for you and for me and for everybody else, this would be a helpful thing for you to do. So that's kind of the way I see it. In the video and in the book, I kind of give the example of, because emotions drive behavior. Like, if you imagine if a kid is crying, you need to understand the why. Why are they crying? Are they crying because a spider has just crawled across their pillow and they're terrified? Or are they crying because somebody just unplugged their video game and said it's time to do homework now? And those two different responses from the child would then have a completely different response from a parent. A parent might say, oh, I see the spider. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Pick up the spider, take it outside or whatever. And then for a child that was really upset and throwing a tantrum about having, lost the screen time, you'd have to handle that in a different way. You might say, look, screen time's over now. It's time to get on with your homework. And now we're setting a boundary and we're being very calm about it. But we really haven't, I guess in that scenario, you're not even really training anything. You're just dealing with the situation as the grown up in the room. That's not to say that you couldn't teach skills. I like you. I mean, I actually love training dogs and working with dogs. I think it's really fun. I like even.
They're really fun. And
yes.
And it was fun. It was interesting because when you were talking about kind of pulling this program together, you were like, I really just focused on 4 things. And I would say when I'm thinking in terms of the obedience kind of skills, I don't have like a big, huge laundry list, right? Like I don't particularly care whether the dog offers a sit or a down. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they're in perfect heel position. I don't care. And the average family I work with doesn't care about that either. But they do want some tools for themselves and their children to get the dog to move off to a safe space.
Yep.
When the norovirus hits your household, right? Literally, the world kind of explodes in that moment. Do you want the dog in the middle of it? Or do you want to say, go to my room and go lay on the bed and close the bedroom door and deal with what you got to deal with without the dog in the middle of the fray?
Yeah, totally. And I think another way of looking at skills is the more skills a dog has under their belt, the more freedom they can have to do fun stuff in the world. When they don't have skills, or some dogs are naturally equipped to just be mellow, easygoing dogs, and some aren't. But like, if your dog's going to jump on people, chew things up, run off and not come back when you ask them to, not stay still if you need them to stay still, you're not going to take them as many places. They're not going to get to interact with as many people. Their life is just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I think if we can, for me, that's what skills are about. Is like, I've got you have a Clumber Spaniel, Julie. I know I've got a working Cocker Spaniel, the very opposite ends of the Spaniel bell curve, I think. But I mean, he's so fast and so energetic. He has to have an absolutely 100% recall, no matter what. Otherwise, he's not off leash, and he needs to be off leash for to meet his needs. He needs to be running in long grass and doing all the things he loves to do. But without that skill under his belt, he wouldn't have the affordances to be able to go out and do that stuff. So I think it's a combination of all the things. The dial method really just tries to help the grown up understand. Well, the four zones, it probably would help if I say those, because it will set the context a little bit. See your dog. So that's understanding all dogs, and then understanding your own unique dog, like reading body language and accepting who they are. Parent your dog, which is understanding what your dog needs from you, meeting their needs, making sure that you're supporting them when they are asking for it. Then teach your crew, which is sharing the information that you know about your dog and, what they need with the people around you, with your inner circle. And for families, I have teach your kids. It's the same kind of context, but really, really honed for children. And then the last one is create a plan, which is taking all of the things that you know now and all of the things that you'd love your dog to do, and think about your day as it breaks down. What am I going to do? Like, for example, when I'm eating breakfast, what do I want my dog to do? It might not necessarily be a training thing. It might be, I want them in the crate, or I want them behind a baby gate so they're not jumping up and stealing food off my plate. It could be that simple. And so that's what the dial method does. It just helps people understand their own role in this. And it's surprising how much the dog can do great things in a family without as many. As you said, Tina, you take a couple of basic behaviors, I think probably 6, and you can go a long way with 6 basic behaviors. And for the most part, we might enjoy training, but a lot of my clients, some of them enjoy it, some of them don't have the skill set to get really deep into it, and some of them just don't care. They haven't got the motivation. They've got other stuff they've got to do. So you have to get really frugal, don't you, with what you're teaching and try and make the most of it.
I'm like, okay, what's the most bang for your buck?
That's exactly right.
Can I get the dog to pay attention that there is a human on the planet that's attached to them in some emotional way?
Yep.
And it's really stunning to me how often that is where we have to start. So I love in the book that because it's something I talk about all the time too, is looking at a situation and saying, okay, what skills does my dog need to be able to navigate the freedom that I'm about to give them? Has responsibility attached to it, right? So which skills does the dog need? Does the dog have those skills? If not, then do I include the dog, or is this going to be a training opportunity? And how are we going to do it? And I think that there's been I think as positive dog training has become a bigger segment of dog trainers, that there's a lot of just being permissive and going, okay, well, we're going to throw all the rules out the window and not have criteria and boundaries, not teach the dog, not coach the dog, like the dog will just figure it out. And it's awful. Right. So they're giving the dog the freedom of running off leash, but the dog doesn't have a 100% reliable recall.
Yeah.
And they're not in a fence.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, we don't do that way. Like
you can't do it.
Not safe.
Yeah.
Right. The same way that if I had a child who didn't know how to swim, I'm not going to throw them in the deep end.
No, you can get arrested for stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, no, exactly. I have obviously my dog that loves to be off leash, and I find places for him to run around. And I have another dog that just absolutely cannot be off leash. And it breaks my heart because I want him to have the freedom, but he just cannot, he can't hear when he's far away from me and he's busy doing his thing. He's just got very selective hearing and he's not reliable. Jack
Russell.
He's a terrier mix. Yeah.
Yeah. No. And I would tell you that there is something about terriers having arguably being a terrier myself and having a long history with terriers. I will say, I literally think they can't hear us when they're searching for scritching things.
I don't think they can, isn't there? There's actually science behind it. I think
because as soon as you get their attention, they're like, Mom, it's been a great time. There was a squirrel, and they will come over.
Yeah,
they literally don't hear us.
No, I 100% agree. It's a real wake up call to have a terrier if you've not lived with one. I'm sure every breed, as you start to live with them intimately, you figure out. And like, this is part of See Your Dog. We've talked about what these dogs were bred to actually do, what their jobs were. And it's not to say that they're all going to be, not all Jacks are going to be like that. Not all terriers are going to be like that, but don't be surprised if they are, because that's what they were supposed to do. We wanted them. We intentionally made them that way. So, if they start, I mean, my little dog, he's like 11 pounds and he's the boldest, bravest, go down a hole and take on anything. He thinks, well, I mean, it's the stereotype, isn't it? But yeah, that's what he was supposed to do. So for me to get mad at him for that.
Right. And most of us don't have a go to ground in the backyard. Right. So guess what? That becomes your HVAC system.
Right.
Those are the tunnels that were, super handily installed in your home for your hair.
Oh my gosh. An old tarp that maybe has some like mouse droppings on it. I mean, it could be like 3 days left in there. I mean, you'd never see him again. He'd be in heaven.
And so Julie's funny because with sporting breeds, I mean, when she told me they were going to get a clumber, I was like, have you been around a lot of clumbers? Because they're hysterical, but their give a hoot.
Zero.
Non-existent. Do not care.
So I don't know many of them, which is a real shame because I feel like they'd be so fun. There's almost none here. I don't think I've even seen one in all the time I've been working in class. I'm trying to remember. I don't think so.
Well, they're 220th in popularity and like 221 breeds. And the reason for that is because they snore, they shed, they drool, and they countersurf. And we love her. Yes. We just love, and she does, like, we've been working really hard on her recall. In fact, we were walking at our cottage the other day and commenting on the fact that she's really staying with us more on the road. She's not going off. Her recall is so much better. And then my husband says, something just went down that ditch. Maybe it was a weasel. And I said, no, it's a cat. And that's the instant Clementine saw the cat. Bye.
Yeah.
She was across the road. Luckily, it's a dirt road. Nobody ever drives on it. Right. She's across the road and in the woods. And we got her back when she was finished with the cat. But, we had been working really, really hard on this.
Yeah.
And the next day, when she and I went for a walk with the flatcoat, who's got a great recall, Clemmy just wasn't off lead because she had learned, we have to go back to the beginning. And they are just professional counter surfers. It's absolutely, you read any clumber group, anything somebody says, try to get a clumber, the first thing everybody says, they are inveterate professional counter surfers.
I don't think I've ever heard that in a job description of any dog, like singled out that specific breed trait. That's hilarious. Love it.
Totally professional counter surfers.
Don't you think actually this is
slightly competition for counter surfing because clumbers would win hands down.
Is that at the national?
Yeah, I think so.
So for the breed national, do they do clumber specific things like I don't know, like sequence snoring?
Yeah. Well, and but the one of the best things, she's totally imperturbable. I mean, like there was, somebody was out at our cottage. Somebody there's a shooting range and they were shooting and my grand dog, the Aussie, was like, oh my goodness, the entire world is coming to an end. I need to hide in the laundry. This is really awful. You people, like there's boom boom skies. Clemmy's like, just, totally imperturbable. So, let's put it this way. I have
Which probably makes her fantastic with the kids.
Yes and no. And unless, you're 2 years old and you fall purposely on top of her, she doesn't care for that.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what I would say is I have two breeds, a flat-coated retriever and a Clumber Spaniel. And those are not breeds I recommend for beginning people. They're both difficult breeds in their own particular way. The flat coat in the sense that that never grows up. It's the Peter Pan of the dog world. Mm-hmm. And I adore them. Absolutely adore them. I adore the Clumber, and I would not recommend either breed to a beginning person. For somebody who wants a brand new dog, they never had one before. These are not the breeds that I would recommend.
Neither is a working cocker either. Like that. Yeah, absolutely not.
So I do think this is a beautiful thing that you talk about in the group in this program is like, what job is your breed created to do? Now, there's going to be a standard deviation. Like some are going to be really good at that job. Mm-hmm. Some are going to be really bad at that job. But if you get a bloodhound puppy, there's certain things that come with that.
Yeah, you can't be surprised if their nose is attached to the ground.
And their ears turn off.
Yeah.
And rotator cuff surgery.
And actually, I feel like for the clients that I've worked with, I love Kim Brophy's work, her legs model, the family dog mediation model. And in that, with all of the knowledge of the breed groups, and again, as you said, Julie, there's a huge bell curve. Actually, no, sorry, Tina, that was you. There's a huge bell curve, obviously. And so, no two dogs are necessarily going to be the same, and some are much more drivey than others. However, when you talk to your clients about it and you explain what they were bred to do, there's a humongous level of relief for them. Because I think sometimes as trainers, we've kind of sold this idea that we can train anything. And one, is that true? And two, should we? That they would be the big questions that I would want to ask about that. So if your bloodhound puppy is nose to the ground and not listening to you, you have to get really creative if you do want them to pay attention to you outside. And you have to know that walks for you for the rest of your dog's life might be on a long line. And that's just going to be the way it is. And don't feel like you failed. Don't feel like your dog has failed. You are just two very different creatures trying to share the same space.
One of the things I would tell my clients is, people ask me, what kind of training do you do? And I do family dog training. And they're like, why? And I said, because my first thing is I want to help people love the dog they actually have, not the dog they think they have, not the dog they wish they could have, but what's the dog you actually have? Because I want you to love that dog. And I want you to develop a system of communication between the two of you so that you have a well-mannered member of your family. That doesn't mean it's obedience, but a well-mannered member of the family means that you two can communicate to each other and things are going to go much better because you're developing a relationship. That's what's really going to be the key.
Yep, exactly. And you can do stuff together. You can enjoy each other.
Well,
so,
and it's the magic. Like, I often am a little sad when I meet customers who are like so frustrated with the dog in front of them. And honestly, the dog is just as frustrated.
mm-hmm.
Right? So everybody's just harsh and everybody else is mellow. And I've had some people who are like, I don't care how the dog feels about it. I don't care if and I'm like, okay, hold up. So if your child was born left-handed, is it okay for anyone to force your child to learn how to be right-handed?
Mm-hmm. I really like that. I haven't heard that.
Right. Or be
so
upset with your child that they're not tall enough.
Yeah.
Or that their hair's too brown. Like, there are some things baked into this dog that you chose that are just who that dog is at their core.
Yep.
And that might mean that we find a different home for that dog. And that's okay too. Like, that is not the worst thing that happens. I actually think the worst thing that happens is keeping that kind of conflict where the gears don't align and just grind against each other all the time is actually the worst, because dogs get a really short ride and they deserve a good one. Right. And people deserve to have a dog in their family if they want a dog that's a great fit, and that the dog, I always talk about Snoopy and Charlie Brown, like neither one's perfect, but they know each other so well that it's okay.
Yeah.
They work it out.
But I mean, it's a relationship, is it? It's like, isn't it? It's just like a human relationship. If you were living with somebody, a partner, and you just kept cooking food that they hated and they were like, I really don't like this. And you're like, I don't really care. I'm going to continue to do this. So I'd really like to go out. And the person's like, I would really like to stay in. And then you make the person go out all the time. Like, there's a compatibility issue there. And it's not fair for one person to just always get their way and not really care or have any like inclination to read what's coming up, the other side of communication. So I think that is the essence of it, is like taking a moment. That's why I start actually with see your dog, because until we can see the dog and see what the dog wants, I think that there are a lot of, the dog loving public have been sold a bit of a fallacy about dogs, who they are, what they like. We pick dogs based on looks more often than not, and whether they're hypoallergenic rather than whether we're compatible or not. And then we're told we have to take them to training classes and they need to do what we say. And the dog's voice and who they are is not taken into account anywhere. So unless we can start there, I don't think we've got a lot really to play with in a good relationship. People will just feel either that they're successful, that they train their dog and the dog does everything they want them to, or they're going to feel like they're just butting their head against a brick wall because they're not getting what what the dream. Most people just want the dream. They just want to live with the dog they love, and they want the dog to love them and, snuggle with them at the end of the day. That's what I see.
Right. One of the things that I also do too, and I know you mentioned this, and I think it's worth mentioning again, is that after I talk about my whole philosophy with clients about this, I want you to love the dog that you have. I want you to build a relationship that's based on communication and trust with one another. And part of the way to build that relationship that's based on cooperation and trust and communication is that not only do you have to figure out how to communicate effectively to them, you've got to learn effective communication from them. You need to learn your dog's particular body language so that you understand when your dog is stressed, when your dog is happy, when your dog is fearful, All these things are really important. And the more you understand and can read your dog's communication, what I find is the empathy level for the dog increases dramatically. And a relationship really begins to form between owner and dog when they feel like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand. You're not being stubborn. You're afraid. Or
Right.
you're confused. And so, great, I can help to clarify this. And also, too, the other thing that I have found is that it's really important for me to give like permission to my owners to say, you are your dog's advocate and you have every right to say, no, you cannot pet my dog, or to stand between your dog and the person that's coming towards it and the dog is backing up. I give them permission to be their dog's advocate. And once they seize onto that and realize I don't have to let everybody pet my dog, I don't have to let my dog greet everybody, they become an advocate. That also increases the trust in the relationship and the cooperation. And all these things work together. And then when you got that, man, everything's a piece of cake after that. Anything you
But that is a fundamental piece of Teach Your Crew in the Dial method, is to advocate for your dog, because they are relying on us like children rely on their parents to advocate for them. If you don't do that, they can't trust you. And you see a lot of dogs that don't trust their owners. Not their owners love them, or their guardians, pet parents, love them, but they're just not aware of that's the role that they need to fulfill. And actually, I love what you just said, Julie. I think that is the core of a great relationship, is trust. And if you violate the trust, your dog loses it quickly. It takes a long time to build, and it can take seconds to disappear. And you're building your trust in your dog, and they're building their trust in you simultaneously. You made me think of something when you were said about you taking the time to see your dog, reading your dog's body language, your own specific dog, because they will do different things. There's general rules that we know, like tail tucking usually means that they're scared. I'm trying to think, why am I blanking now? But ears going back also might mean being frightened. Lip licking is sign of appeasement, all these things. But your own dog will do different things or specific things. And with this, with my most recent dog, he's going to be 3 in a couple of days. And I have not only, I read his body language, obviously, like, because it's my job and because I love doing stuff like that anyway. But I've now started to let him know that I'm taking him really seriously and telling him. So when he comes to me or he has something to say to me, then I will say, okay, what is it? What do you need help with? And then he'll come and show me. And so it's unbelievable when you take the time to listen, because they're trying to communicate with us all the time, that they will actually seek us out like children will and be like, hey, mom, I got a problem over here. Often it's to do with things like, he took my ball and now he has it. My other dog, the terrier's nicked it or whatever. And I've got to go and help him out. Or something's rolled under a couch, or he's got something, he's very sensitive about his body. He'll freeze, like, when we're on a walk, and just not move at all if there's like a leaf that's just gently attached to the back of his ear. So dramatic. But those kind of things, he'll be like, Mom, I need you. And because I will step in and say, I got you. I see, baby boy.
And I will say that it is an endless source of amusement in our house to play dumb with them. Right? So our terrier, who was given to me during COVID and has significantly shortened my list of things my dogs have never done, on a walk was annoyed with me because I wouldn't let him just, I don't know, murder any living thing we came across, threw himself down and closed his eyes and laid down on the walk and smiled and pretended he was dead.
That'll
He's
show
like,
you.
I'm not looking
That'll
at you.
show you.
Like, I'm just going to lay here like a dead dog. So people are stopping going, ma'am, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, Lazarus over here is fine. Right. Now, he's very dramatic, and he did eventually laugh at me and get up and shake off and go, okay, fine. Now I can go on the walk again, when I threatened him with a car ride with daddy. So, he just, he had a whole life before us, and we have entirely too many rules, and he just couldn't take it anymore.
Yep.
Right now, that was relatively early in our relationship. Now, Mr. I'm a level 7 resource guarder is like, hey, would you like my Chewy so I could go outside? So, Christopher is still like, oh, that's a trick. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Here, give me that. Out you go. You can have it when you come back in. But it's funny to watch the evolution. And I do sometimes like punking them a little bit, like we do with kids, where we're like, wait, what did you ask about?
Sorry, I didn't understand you. Say it again.
We don't eat pizza in this house, like, or whatever it is that you're busting them on. So you've talked about see your dog, see your child, see your spouse, know what's in their gifting. Then you're parenting. So this is really building in those skills and doing those constant assessments that parents do or grandparents do all the time. Like, is little Timmy ready to go to Six Flags, or is that going to be completely overwhelming for him? The same way, is Rufus ready to go to the soccer field, or is that going to be completely overwhelming for him? So then what is step 3 of the dial method?
So that's teach your crew or teach your kids, depending on whether you're getting the family edition or just the classic dial. And that really is, and we have a lot of work to do here as a community. I actually listened to some of your podcast about you talking, Julie, about going to Ireland and seeing the dogs and how dogs were just kind of wandering around. And you can obviously hear from my accent that I'm English. I actually became a trainer when I was here in the States. So I'm moving back there at the end of this month, actually. So I'm interested to see, even though I see it when I'm there, just like temporarily, I'm really excited to go back and see dogs living as organically as they do for the most part. But I think one of the things that we really have to, as a community, need to work on is this like safety and respect level around dogs, understanding that we want dogs to be respectful of us. We don't like them jumping all over us, but we are not very respectful towards dogs. And so we have to teach the people in our inner circle not to do certain things to our dogs that they might not appreciate. And we'll only know that by being able to see our dog and parenting our dog, right? The second piece of that is like the advocacy piece, is stepping in and making sure that we are the trusted figure of doing that. And, worst case scenario, we have to separate them. If we've got the really unruly family members coming over that just won't follow any instruction, then maybe the best place for the dog is in a different room, in a crate, or going to grandma's house for the day. If that's, you're having a party and it's just too much, you just have to separate them. I really do think that separating dogs, again, feels like a taboo to our clients sometimes, that they haven't made it if they have to separate their dogs, and they don't feel comfortable doing it and don't realize the benefits of just taking the stress levels down for family members.
We've talked about that a lot, especially when it has to do with like contractors or people coming to your house.
Yes.
Like, my dogs do not need to get to know the dryer repairman.
Nope.
They do need to get to know my son-in-law, who's going to be there for Thanksgiving. But as far as I know, the dryer repairman is not coming for Thanksgiving dinner. So we don't need to have him have a personal relationship with you guys. And he doesn't need to feel as though things are out of control for him either. I remember just a couple weeks ago, I was outside at my house. I have a fenced-in yard in which Clementine is, right? Zuzu can come outside the fenced yard because she'll stay with me. That's the flat coat. But a UPS driver came up and I grabbed Zuzu and I put her in the backyard. And the guy got out and he said, thank you. I said, she's really friendly. She's not he goes, she looked friendly, but thanks. And I just thought, wasn't that big a deal for me to do it. And it made him so much more comfortable. So it's little things like that are just, take a step back. I don't always want to, I hated going to a client's house and they'd open the door and the dog would come charging at me.
Yeah.
This
just jump on your car. Like, I've driven up to people's houses before and they let the dog out and it just on your car with the nails. I'm like, what is happening?
Right.
We love our own dogs, but maybe the rest of the world doesn't love them as much as we do.
Yeah, I had one client, she said, I drove up and the dog came racing out, growling and barking and snarling. And I was like, I don't really want to get out of the car. And she, they finally backed off and I got out of the car. She goes, she goes, he's fine. He's not going to hurt you. I'm like, that's not what he's saying,
right, right.
Which is not knowing your dog, which goes back to quadrant number 1. But
and again, I have found that one of the ways to kind of get a hold of people is to say, so I work with a population of dogs called potcakes. So lots of them are from Turks and Caicos. We have two. They can be, there's the coconut hounds from St. Kitts. There's a whole group. Generally speaking, these are dogs that prefer kind of a small world that's safe. Right? Because the world doesn't feel safe for them for a whole host of reasons. Now, again, there's a standard deviation. Some are much more social. Some are less so. Some have gifting in some areas or another. But when I turn the tide, so when I say to somebody, like, just create a safe space that your dog can go and relax and have a sanctuary in your home when, Mildred from across the street comes over to talk to you about your other neighbor, Gertrude, because she's mad at her, because she stole her eggplant. And they're like, well, I'm not comfortable doing that. Like, the dog needs to learn. And I'm like, okay, if Mildred was terrified, truly phobic about dogs, would it be a kindness to have your dog in the room with Mildred? And they're like, absolutely not. Like, that would be terrible to do to Mildred. And I'm like, right. Your dog's the same way. Mildred is a fire-breathing dragon. And if your goal is that your dog loves Mildred, scaring the tar out of your dog by keeping them in the room is not a way to convince them that Mildred is lovely.
No. And that's like that. And that's a bit. Yeah, and that's a bit
how you do
that's
that.
a fear thing, right? So those dogs that come from that environment, you can imagine how many new things they're trying to have to deal with. Again, imagine the see your dog would be like off the charts for that. You've really got to know that dog and what kind of environments and situations you're going to put them into. And then even on the most minute level, even if you're living in a house with somebody that you absolutely adore and you adore everything about them, sometimes you just want to go in your room and close the door.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we all need our own personal space. I just dropped my son off at college and he's sharing a dorm room with another kid that he's never met before. And he's having a great time and it's all good. But I said to him, how are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm good. I'm a bit tired. And I was like, it's probably got to be exhausting because you're on all the time. He's grown up in his own home where he's had his own bedroom and now he's got to be on with a person he doesn't know. So I'm just even thinking on the most basic level of these potcakes, coming into a new home, maybe everything's going swimmingly. This is the best case scenario. It's still exhausting.
And it also only takes one big scare.
Oh yeah.
To have them look at their family and go, you are not trustworthy.
Yep.
Right. It's real. They're really an interesting breed group. And so I tell people all the time, being a foster and an adoptive human parent made me a much better dog trainer.
Yeah.
And being a dog trainer specifically to these significant behavior cases it made me a better parent, but it made me a better human being. Because I kind of learned to stow my stuff. Like, it's not about me and I don't get to set the pace. And I would say that is the difference between kind of the puppy raised in someone's kitchen from, that mom and dad are both lovely dogs and they've had the, good medical care and good nutrition and raised in a household with dogs that have been generationally bred as feral pariah dogs. It doesn't matter if they're in their kitchen. They didn't suddenly become a lab. Right? Like that doesn't, and people, and I love them. The rescues try to explain it. And, if I had a nickel for every time I heard, well, I did my research. And I'm like, okay, well, your Google search, the dog doesn't much care about.
Like, we're so conditioned that dogs are there for our bidding. We are so conditioned that dogs are this way. We haven't talked about the dial devil, which I should talk about in a minute, but there's the dial devil is all of the social constructs around dogs that dog trainers would love to talk to the public about, but sometimes it's really difficult for us to have those conversations. And one of them is called stuffed puppy syndrome. So, I see, because I work with a lot of kids, that kids just desperately want to hug and kiss dogs right up in their face. And obviously some dogs will tolerate it and some dogs flat out don't like it. But even tolerating it, I always think of like,
you're wearing it out.
You're wearing it out, but also no parent would ever say, my daughter is so great. She lets kids do anything to her on the playground.
Right.
And we would be so grossed out if anyone ever said that. But we talk about dogs in that sort of context quite often. It's a badge of honor to tolerate things that you don't actually enjoy. So,
and sometimes things that, while the intention is beautiful and sweet and clear, is received in a really negative way.
Yeah.
If I have a sunburn and you feel terrible that I have a sunburn, so you decide to give me a hug and poke me on the back to tell me it'll be okay that I have a sunburn, that is not going to be a special gift.
It's not going to be helpful.
It's not going to be helpful.
No, that's not going to be helpful.
Right?
But so even with the people that are adopting the pot cakes, I'm thinking about that. Like they might even in their heads be like, oh, we know what we're getting into, but they've just heard this story so many times over and over of what a dog is supposed to be.
Yes.
And it's not always going to, and it's in that particular case, it's likely it's not going to line up. Definitely not at the beginning. And that's why I think so many dogs are in rescue, because of this mismatch of expectations more than anything else.
Are you getting, like, the last 10 years, all of a sudden, everybody is like, if I don't take my dog for a walk every day, I'm a terrible human being and I'm going to go to prison. And I'm like, your pot cake, your fearful dog, it doesn't even have to be a pot cake, a dog who is genuinely sensitive, that walk is the dog going, lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Like, it's a haunted house and they don't know that the people can't touch them.
Right.
Like, and dogs will put up with an amazing amount of discomfort in order to love us and do what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's, I think, sometimes the real tragedy is like this poor dog is doing something that is excruciating for them
to try to fit in,
to try to just meet their family's expectations. And their family is also doing something that they probably in their bones know the dog is not really actually enjoying this. This is awful, because they're trying to meet some preconceived conception of what the world believes of them. And so I love, like, this dial method, like, I'm digging it, whether we're talking about people or whether we're talking about dogs.
The goal is to be as kind to people as it is to dogs. And I've written the whole thing using the we pronoun, because it's all of us. It's a reminder to myself. So I'm not always getting this right. I mean, we're all dog professionals. We know our dogs do stuff that we're like, oh my gosh. And we respond in ways where we're like, oh my gosh. So sometimes we have to poll our friends on how we get ourselves out of sticky situations. None of us are doing this perfectly, but it's a good reminder of what we should be doing. And maybe not listening so much to the cultural expectations of us, but really starting to focus on, Julie, as you said, the dog in front of you, where you are right now, the environment you live in, the family members you live with. I think that one of the things that I struggled with is that, and I probably fell victim to this myself, is that when I was trying to make things really easy for families, because people with kids have no time, right? So it's really difficult for them to practice. I'm trying to get the message smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in the hope that I can get them to get somewhere on their ladder of success, right? And so when I made the dial method, obviously it's a 40-minute video. So all of the stuff that I desperately wanted people to know is crammed into 40 minutes. But the thing that I'm most proud of is that you can watch the video and you're going to think, oh, there's a lot of stuff in there that I didn't know or didn't think about. If you haven't worked with dogs before, you haven't had a dog before. But the workbook then helps you take the things that you've learned in the dial method and then make it very unique and bespoke to your own family, because you can't dumb things down so much and say, oh, you've got a dog, it's 8 weeks old, this is what you need to do. That would be a massive mistake for anybody. Any dog professional, like, worth their salt, would never do that. We need to know the family. We need to know where they live. We need to know who's in their house. We need to know about their dog. We need to know about their goals. We need to know so much more information. So the workbook will actually help them unpack all of that stuff and then start living into the dream that they actually want, hopefully with something simple that they can, they can follow.
That's great. And I think that's a wonderful summary of what the Dial program is all about. Can you tell people where they can find it?
Yes, it's very easy. It's just thefamilydog.com. So if you come there, you'll see that there's 3 ways that you can select it, either for pet parents, the regular dial method, the classic dial method, family, and kids edition. And then we've got some really exciting stuff for professionals as well, because a lot of professionals are using this as like a precursor to their own training. So they're asking the people that they work with to learn the human side of the relationship, keep their side of the street clean, and then I'll come and work with your dog with you, because then everybody's kind of growing from the same foundation. So you can become a dial guide as a professional, and then you can use this in your own training. So
can you talk a little bit about that dial guide program? Because I'm thinking this might be something good even for veterinarians or vet techs to talk about, or shelter staff to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that it could be a dog aficionados, not just dog trainers, but we have dog trainers who listen. We have vet techs and vets who listen. So could you talk to us about like who you're trying to encourage to be a guide, kind of what that program looks like?
Yeah, well, the Dial Guide program is like, I've taught it twice now, because this program's only been out for just under a year, and there's really just me and my assistant who are working on it. So I've run 2 of those, and it's a 7-hour workshop really aimed at dog trainers. So if you're a dog trainer and this is something that you'd like to bring into your practice, we're running another one at the beginning of next year, time and date to be released soon. But for the vets, groomers, breeders, rescues, all of the other dog professionals that would like, that care about where their dogs go and what family life looks like for them. We're going to run, like a public presenter kind of version of this, so that you can play the video and that you can go through the workbook with people. And for shelters, what we would like to do is actually, in fact, I need to talk to you about this, Tina, if you work with a rescue, we're going to create a workbook. So exactly like the workbook that you currently own, and inside it there'll be a QR code that will give you the video. So shelters will be able to give away a workbook with the video, a full package, and get sponsorship. What I want to do is create a sponsorship package for them, so that they can get local people in their town, to take dogs' lives to a whole new level, maybe without getting into all the really fine details, the technicalities of training. So I hope that answers the question. Yep.
All right. Well, I'm so glad you joined us today, Justine. It sounds like it's a great program, and I think that our owners will find it to be extraordinarily easy to access, as well as very complementary to the kinds of things that Tina and I talk about all the time. And I think it's a wonderful program because it's a way in which you present material that makes living with a dog, what we really want with like your family dog is to love living with dogs. And I think that your program really assists families in living and loving the dog that's in their life, and providing them with a way that doesn't feel quite so burdensome. Training can feel very burdensome sometimes, and we don't want to burden families. We want to lighten their load so that their dogs' lives are lightened too. So
yeah, we want to make it fun. I used to work at Nickelodeon. I used to work in television before I was a dog trainer, and that's hence the video production stuff. For me, it's always been about making things fun to learn. Otherwise, people aren't going to do it. And you're right. In fact, Julie, you just said a line which is hilarious. It's in my book. It says, I don't want you just to live with your dog, but I want you to love living with your dog. So we are completely on the same page. It's not just about struggling.
Right.
It's about enjoying each other. That's why we get dogs. It's the whole reason. We want to have fun with them. We want to enjoy their company.
Well, the other thing I think is nice about your program is sometimes I kind of felt when especially with the first training that I went to, which we don't talk about, those are the dark days. Anyway, it was just this terrible burden to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And that what happens if I make a mistake? And what I love about this program, and I think what Tina and I are trying to, which is why Tina and I always talk about all the mistakes that we make with our dogs.
Always.
And I mean, I'm sure that people think if they listen to any of my stories about Clementine, by the way, it was named for Clementine Churchill. They're going to go, she was a dog trainer. That's just really sad. But the fact is that we are going to make mistakes.
Yes.
If you have a relationship with your dog that is built on cooperation and trust, when you make a mistake, you've built up this bank of trust and love with your dog.
Mm-hmm.
And if you build it up enough, if you take a deficit because you did something stupid,
Yep.
there's still stuff left in the bank. And it's so important to have that relationship bank as full as possible so that, you know what, inevitably, because pretty much on a daily basis, I do something stupid. Not with my dog.
Do. This is, I mean, it's a fallacy that we are perfect and we get it right all the time. There's loads of times I'm like, oh my goodness me, I'm really glad there's not a camera on me right now. Like really, it's so, we just mess up. That's part of being human. In fact, it's advice I give to my kids. I'm like, get used to making mistakes. It's actually what you do with the mistake that is important because you're going to make them for the rest of your life, kiddo.
Well, and I don't know, there's a lot of advocacy here for screw it up a different way next time. Like that.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I don't think like slamming my hand in the car door over and over is a great way to learn. But man, I learned it the first time. I didn't get a second lesson on that. Right. So, I think a lot of times it's really interesting that I'm like, okay, well, so how did you handle that situation? And they talk about it. I'm like, okay, well, what do you think worked well? And what do you think maybe you might want to adjust in the future? And people are like, not get a dog. And I'm like, right. Because that's how we feel sometimes. Like, okay, I just need a new one because I've made all the errors with this one. But I will also say like some of the coolest stuff that I have ever figured out, I figured out by that not easy dog. Or that easy kid, or that not easy customer, or that not easy situation. And I get to be creative, which sometimes as parents, whether parenting dogs or kids, we're just trying to survive the day. And I understand that. I was right there too. But where the magic started to happen was when I realized like, oh, but I don't have to always be putting out fires. Like I could actually have a plan for how the day's going to go and even consequences.
Yep.
Right? Like I don't even have to think about them in the moment. I could be like, hold on, let me open up the kitchen cabinet. Today, your consequence is, and I point to number 3. Mm-hmm. Now you get to vacuum because you've been stealing my energy all day by arguing with me about every little thing. And so I don't have the energy to vacuum today. So thank you.
Over to you.
Vacuum.
Yes. I just remember with my kids, I used to say, even if I got something wrong, if I did something, made a mistake with them, there's a pretty much 100% guarantee I'll get a repeat on that. But even if I did it right, there's pretty much 100% guarantee that I'm going to get a chance to do it again.
Right.
And, so I mean, it's just, there are very few things that come up with our kids or our dogs that we don't get in some way, shape or another a do-over. I mean, there are certain things you can't do over, but there are many, many things that's kind of like, I messed that up. All right, let's try it differently next time. And it may be a little bit harder next time because I really messed up this time, but it's not totally irretrievable. So,
yep. And you learn them. I wholeheartedly agree that you learn the most in the most difficult situations. You do not like it in that moment and you want to rip your hair out and you're all grumpy about it. And then, you have to go outside and scream outside into the woods or whatever. And then you come back in, but you make the biggest strides in your life through the hardest times. And the most difficult dogs will push you there. The most difficult kids will push you there. And you have to be grateful for those moments. I think they just expand you.
We know it's because my goal is to learn every day too.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So when you do have
that's
that difficult dog, if you're at home listening and you're like, oh my gosh, but you haven't met my dog. We all have had one of those dogs. And
Yes.
yes, they drive you absolutely to distraction.
Well, and often what I see is that their gifting and our gifting is off, right? So that dog just happens to be dialing for your sensitivities.
Yep.
And hitting it every single time.
All right. Well, we probably need to wrap this up.
Well, we would love to have you back sometime.
Well, we just need to have you come back. That's all.
Totally. I'd love that. I'd love it. I feel like there's lots for us to talk about. We could go deep on one of these subjects. There's so much.
Yes, I'd love
very
that.
much like that. So, but today is not that day. Today was the introduction, and we've had guests that have come back 3 and 4 times. So,
and we love it. It's great.
All you need to do is go back onto Calendly and book yourself again.
All right. Sounds good.
So and you have an open invitation. We always like really fantastic guests who agree with us. I mean, we would love you anyway. She also, so this is an audio program. I just have to tell you, like, Julie and I both look like we were dragged behind Subarus for a couple of miles before we jumped on the Zoom call today because we're tired. And Justine
is gorgeous.
Her house looks perfect.
Yeah.
Her hair is amazing. She's wearing white and she has children and dogs.
No. Okay.
She looks like she's had a good night.
Can I bust the fallacy? Can I bust it? Do you want to know the truth? I'm in a corner of my bedroom because I'm moving to the UK. I have a mattress on the floor over there. I've got a rash on my chest that I've been scratching all morning. So I'm really excited that this shirt was the thing that was kind of covering it up and deflecting. My hair is crazy right now. I don't even know what to do with it. I'm trying to grow it out. So
it's fantastic. It's like
you've made me sound a lot better than I am because it's a hot mess over here.
Okay. So this is great though, right? Because my dogs are currently outside enjoying beautiful weather. Right. Yep. My house is a complete wreck and I'm okay with that. Like I've been sick. I'm not going to sweat it. I'll clean it up later. I love that you can say like, yes, I did not know if this was going to be a video production. And so you are getting to see exactly what I could make look amazing.
You're going to see this one tiny corner of my house that hasn't got clothes on the chair.
Guess what? Our dogs are perfect in a bunch of corners. Yeah. And it's usually the corner that's not perfect is the one we tend to focus on. And I just don't need to.
No, right. There's a lot. In fact, my computer is currently sitting on my dog's crate. He's asleep at my feet. I can't move. I've got one asleep here and then.
Well, I did notice that you weren't very able to move.
I can't.
And I assumed it was dogs at your feet because that would totally happen.
The little terriers down here, and then because the crate is closed, I can't put my legs underneath. Normally, when I'll let him out and I'll put my legs in the gap where the door is. That's what I'm down to right now because all my furniture is.
So you're going back to the UK. We're losing you.
Yeah.
Well,
you're not losing me. I'm going to be everywhere. I don't plan to go away. I'm just going to be in a different time zone.
And we have done many podcasts with people in the UK, so not a problem. So, and
thank you so much.
And I love the UK because for no other reason than I wrote a book called The Beast Keepers, and I just found out a couple weeks ago. Well, one, I was a finalist for the Wishing Shelf, which is a UK awards program, but I won Best Cover.
So you're a big head honcho in the UK then, huh?
I don't think so, but anyway, but I like the Wishing Shelf in the UK because they give me awards. No money, but they give me awards. So I'll take them. So
we all like awards.
Yeah,
it's fun. Doesn't?
So, all right. Well, I need to go because I'm a hot mess because I've been up since 5 a.m. because my cousin had surgery and I had to take her to surgery. Now I got to go pick up her meds from the pharmacy. So I really do need to book it. So
I get to go teach a puppy class.
All right. And you get to pack off for the UK. So we all have lives to live. So
I got to take my dog to run in the grass. He's been here for the whole day.
And I would love to hear more about the guide program.
Yes.
And find out about that. And yes, we'd love to have you back you handled today as if your world was not chaotic. I would have never
It was perfect.
Guessed. So good job.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I've loved talking with you. It's been great.
It has been great.
Have a great day.
All right. And thanks for listening to Your Family Dog.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.